Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Good evening, or good morning, depending on what time of the day you're here. But I got my friend Reverend Will, and you've got DanK here, and we've got some stories to talk about, some in Oregon, some outside of Oregon right now. We want to talk about an election coming up. This is a real short time frame, and so you need to remember these dates. April 24th, that's the last time you can register to vote before the primary election. So remember that, April 24th. The election itself goes from the 27th till May 15th. That's when you got to get the ballot in that time frame. Now, the important thing is that we're talking about a run for Attorney General of the state of Oregon. Right. Ordinarily, you have a Democrat and a Republican. Well, this go around, we don't have a viable Republican Democrat. That's the problem. We got Republican Democrats. We don't have any Republican running, so it's going to be definitely a Democrat. Well, the Democratic primary is coming up, and as I said, it's coming up April 27th to the May 15th. You need to be a Democrat to vote in the primary. So here's what we're doing. Well, I'll tell you in a minute why it's what we'll do. Anyway, so we've got Dwight Holton, who is an ex-U.S. Attorney General that led the fight against the marijuana and illegal marijuana grows in Southern Oregon. Yep. He's called the medical marijuana program a train wreck, and he wants to be the Attorney General, the highest law enforcement officer in the state of Oregon. His opponent is Ellen Rosenblum, who is a judge, has a lot of experience in the judicial matters, having served 4 positions, different judge positions. She's a Democrat also, of course, and she is pro-medical marijuana and believes in the program and in the healing powers of it.
Right, and also says lowest priority, which is one of the things that's really important to us. That's
right. So there's a great website that's beatholton.com, Holton, HOLTON.com, and it's a great picture of him and with the headline, "Dwight's Not Right for Attorney General." So I enjoy that. So it's really important is to, like I said, remember that is to re-register on April 24th so that you can vote. If you're not a Democrat, re-register the 24th as a Democrat. Then you will receive the Democrat primary ballot, and then you can vote for Ellen Rosenblum and strike a blow against somebody that's trying to take down the program. So we don't want Dwight, we do want Ellen.
That's the whole thing. So am I clear? You have to have your change of party in by the 24th?
Correct. You have to re-register by the 24th if you're not a Republican already.
And then the election itself is from the 27th to the 15th.
Correct.
Okay.
And after the election, after May 15th, you can change back again. And there's no charge. It's a short form. So you can change back to whatever party you want if you don't want to stay a Democrat.
Right.
That's
the main
right.
reason I'm bringing this up is like myself. I'm Pacific Party. And for me, as Pacific Party, I can't vote in the Democratic election, so I would have to do this.
Yep. And the forms, you can get them at the post office, libraries. We have them at Saturday Market. Come down to Saturday Market. We're doing our booth again. Come down by the flagpole, so look at the base of the flagpole. You see at the base of the flagpole, you see a smaller flag that's got a green marijuana leaf. You can't miss it.
Okay.
So that's real important. So that's here in the States. So that's the local news. And yeah, I got to check my notes here, see if there's anything we're missing on it. I know that we've talked about already, and here's the story. One thing is that most of Dwight Holton's money is coming from out of state. Not surprisingly, he's getting more donations than she is. But the medical community is gearing up wanting to help Ellen, so we're hoping that that'll help a little bit.
Yeah, that's one of the things is that a lot of his money's coming from the East Coast, and his father, who was Linwood Holton Jr., was the governor of Virginia in the early 1970s. So although his father was Republican, Holton jumped into Democratic politics working for Dukakis in the 1988 presidential campaign, later for Clinton. Oh, yes.
Yes, Holton points out that he's got plenty of local support, including from most Oregon district attorneys and county sheriffs who have taken a position. The Multnomah, the printer's dying here, Multnomah Attorneys Association endorsed Holton and contributed a fresh $20,000 to his campaign. So it's all about money, so it definitely needs more. So hopefully we can help defeat Dwight. We don't want Dwight.
It'd be nice if we had somebody out there that had some money who could actually help Ellen. I don't know who it would be. It's none of my friends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the jury nullification, which I'm going to be talking about a lot more because I'm realizing how important this is. We used to have some activists that were really heavy into this. They actually went down to the courthouse with flyers and were handing out, many years ago,
Right.
They were handing out flyers trying to inform jurors. The judicial system really doesn't like this. They will run you off and do every intimidation fact they can think of to try to get rid of you because they don't like jurors to know this information. But it says, judges may not tell you this, but when you sit on a jury, you have the right to vote according to your conscience and to judge the law being applied to the case. As a juror, you are the final safeguard for justice. It's the judge's obligation to give the jury the wording of the law being applied to the case. If the judge fails to provide the wording of a law, or you think the law he gives you is a bad or unconstitutional law, or a good law being improperly applied, or there are other factors that would make you regret a vote to convict someone, then it is your right and duty as a juror to vote not guilty, even if you are the only juror who does and you therefore hang the jury. So it's really important, and you never know when you're going to get called up for jury duty. And that's something that we need to educate people about.
It definitely is.
It says, it says, when our country was young, all jurors were told of their right to judge the law as well as facts of the case. Then judges decided that juries should no longer be told of their power to act as a safeguard against bad laws or unethical lawmakers. Now all jurors are instructed to accept the law as it is given to them by the judge, even in cases where the law is clearly unjust. And that's what happened to Danbo's trial. I heard her tell the jury that they could not judge the law, they could not change the law in any way. They had to merely, all they were to do was to find if the defendant was either guilty or not guilty of that law as it was.
Which is a direct turnabout from what we're saying is the way the law has been.
And that's why my sign at the Global Marijuana March, May 5th, Pope, is going to say, Judge Ann Aiken is a liar. Federal judge, she's a liar. I heard her say it. She is lying.
Well, you know, for me, it goes back to Pete Kearns and the people who were at my trial, who sat there, who talked to each other out in the lobby. You can say this didn't happen, but we know it happened. They talked to each other in the lobby. They actually had one of the CRI actually went out and talked to one of the jurors.
CRI?
Confidential Reliable Informant. This person went out and actually talked to one of the jurors in my case, and the fact was that it was so blatant by the time they did the second trial that we had a person go up before the judge and tell the judge that, yeah, she sat out there and listened to these police officers getting their story straight before they went on the stand. And still I was convicted. So, you know, folks, you know, we really do our best to turn the other cheek and to be in a higher light. But understand, when it's the person who's in charge of the police department, when it's the judge who's on the federal bench, when you have people who rush you in the streets because they want you stopped now, because they want to hand you a piece of paper, and they threaten you, and they work really hard to intimidate you in this process. The biggest thing they hate the most is when they can't intimidate you, when you know that you're righteous about what you're doing, And that in that process, even if you go to jail, it's not the worst thing in the world. There's been some great people who've been put in jail. Look at Leonard Peltier. To me, you talk about role models in this country, there's a role model. How often do you talk to your children about this man who stood up to the federal government to the point where they actually had federal agents who showed up in parades dressed in their fancy black, blue, whatever color they are, clothes, as a statement that they did not want Leonard Peltier released from prison? That's because he's one of the darkest spots that the FBI will ever have on their face, and they have many. And that's because they lied to put this person in jail, and they've worked hard to keep him in jail. This is Leonard Peltier. If you want, please Google, giggle, tickle, do whatever you need to in order to find out about the man, because he's our Nelson Mandela in this country.
I think that's Pielter, if I remember correctly.
I'm not sure. It's either that or Peltier, one of those. But Leonard is a good man. And what I'm saying here is it's the court cases that are being rushed. I mean, that's why you don't get the whole thing where you get to actually listen to the law as it's supposed to be read, so you know how the law is supposed to be interpreted and you can question it. You don't get to do that because they're in a hurry. They're in a hurry. They're in a hurry. They're in a hurry. Your doctors, when you go to them and you want them to help you, they're in a hurry. They're in a hurry so they can see more people. Well, if you pay attention to what we're saying, you would have a better world, and you wouldn't have all the stress, and you wouldn't have people who are exacerbating their illnesses because you just don't listen. That's the federal government and the doctors. The VA just charged me a tax for administration and whatever else because I couldn't get $56.81 to them quick enough so I could take medication that's helping save my life. You know, but to me, I'd just as soon die and not take this medication and have to deal with these people putting taxes on me for administrative costs, when if they would just listen to me, I'm telling them when I get the money, I'll get it to you. I can't do it any faster than that. So understand, folks, we're not listened to, and we're not looked at as being viable people in our own society where we can actually make a difference. But that was the beginning of our story today, and we'll be back shortly.
That's right. We're going to take a break here, and don't forget now, that's the Global Marijuana March on May 5th. It's going to be on the Freedom Plaza at 8th and Oak, and the Wayne Morse Freedom Plaza. Across from Saturday Market. We're not part of Saturday Market. We'll be across from Saturday Market, much to their chagrin, by the way. But yeah, so we're going to be there. We're going to meet at 11, march around the area. We'll come back at 12 and have the rally. We'll have speakers, music. It'll be a good time ahead by all, for sure.
There you go.
And prior to that, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, we'll have our booth at the U of O Street Fair, Spring Street Fair. So we're going to be out of here and take a break, and we'll be right back.
Do you suffer from fear of losing your election? Are you terrified that voters will discover you've done nothing to improve their lives? Maybe it's time you talk to your spin doctor about Incarcerex. In clinical trials, Incarcerex has been shown effective at reducing election-related anxieties by making voters think you're doing something about the drug problem. It's simplistic and fast-acting. If your problems continue or get worse, you can always double or triple your dose of Incarcerex. Whether it's addiction, therapeutic use, or just casual use, there's an Incarcerex plan for every American. Best of all, taxpayers, not you, will foot the bill. So talk to your spin doctor about Incarcerex today. Common side effects include loss of civil liberty, police corruption, racial injustice, increased terrorism, spread of HIV and AIDS, and violent crime. Bloated prisons are also a common side effect. Stop taking Incarcerex if bloating lasts longer than 20 years. If you're trying to balance the budget, keep families together, or protect human rights, Incarcerex may not be right for you. Do not mix Incarcerex with the Constitution or common sense. So start taking Incarcerex and keep pretending you're doing something about the drug problem.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You got my friend Will and DanK here, and we're here to talk to you about some stuff. We got a really interesting local story. John Walsh, an old-time activist friend of ours. Actually, he's the guy that got me started in activism over 15 years ago. Anyway, they had an article in the Emerald, Daily Emerald, this weekend edition, feature, front page actually, story about John and his working on the campus, working for cannabis issues.
About time.
Yeah, he does a table there 3 times a week and that collects signatures. I believe, if I remember correctly, I think he has the most signatures on the original Oregon Medical Marijuana Initiative than anybody in the state.
He's a worker, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
he's definitely committed.
Yeah, and it says here, it says for 18 years, the 56-year-old activist from Rhode Island has been involved with student groups on campus, including the Survival Center and the Campaign for the Restoration and Regeneration, Restoration and Regeneration of Hemp. He has gathered thousands of signatures from Oregonians toward legalizing marijuana and has registered hundreds of students to vote. Walsh said his activism stems from help he received from a group of hippies in the late 1960s. They reached out to help Walsh when he was being abused by his stepfather. Side note here, I spoke to a close friend of his recently before he passed away, and he told me about John and that his stepfather was an evil man. The cops were afraid of him. He was so bad. And I guess John's life was pretty bad, and one of the last things he did was they threw John down a flight of stairs as a kid. I don't know how old he was, but
he's had those back problems.
Yeah, so he's got a lot of medical problems, but he's just got a great heart and really devoted. In fact, he's devoted. He'd drive you nuts if you know him well. Don't let him get your phone number. But at the same time, he's great because he reminds me to get stuff done and gives me the nagging that I need at times. So. It's really neat to see him honored. He was honored last year by the Oregon Normal at their medical cup. They honored him as Activist of the Year.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, it's just like Sam Chapman saying he's the president of Students for Sensible Drug Policy at the university. And he says he's worked with Walsh for 4 years, and he calls him a poster child for medical marijuana and said he inspired him to become involved with the Students for Sensible Drug Policy.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, John and I have been looking for years trying to find some students to get, it used to be a very strong community at the university, and it just kind of trailed off into nothing, and for years we couldn't get hardly any students interested. I'd go to the street fairs and work with John, and we would get signatures and have a meeting and have a dozen people show up, and then we never see them again. So Sam Chapman showed up, and boy, he really took off.
Well, it's like he's saying, right now where he used to be able to get a couple hundred signatures a day. Now he's really working hard just to get 12 signatures during the course of the same time frame. So
see, and that's the other thing too. And with his physical, he can't stand on corners and get out where the signatures are. He has to work from a table where he can sit. And even by doing that, he's done incredible. So great honor to John Walsh. He's a great guy. And this is an interesting article that came across talking about the great cannabis and marijuana debate. What's in a word? It says, I love this is by Steve Elliott from tokeofthetown.com. This is a great website to go to. I love the cannabis community. Most of the people working in it have the best intentions and laudable goals. And the challenge facing those who wish to re-legalize cannabis is difficult and daunting enough without those in the movement inadvertently placing additional roadblocks in our own path. One of those roadblocks seems to happen more and more often, and that's arguing over word. Help me here. What's that?
What's that?
Help me here. The etymology. Oh yeah, etymology and usage of all things, rather than working to legalize the plant. Yes, we're talking about the great marijuana cannabis controversy, and getting quite worked up about it. That's an argument they've had for years. Is that they said that cannabis was a Mexican slang word that was demonized back in the early 30s. I remember a while back I asked a Mexican, what's the word for pot? And he said, mota.
Right.
Mota. You know, what? Mota? Why? You know, I thought marijuana was a Mexican word, but mota is the common word, I guess. So.
No, but that does bring up that same point that we've talked about before, is the fact that we are our own worst enemies, because we create something, like he's saying here, these problems where you're going to sit down and argue about the word cannabis versus the word marijuana. One encompasses the other. You know, you can do the same thing with indica and sativa and sensimilla, and I mean, these are terms, if you really want to get into terminology within this, go to Wikipedia and knock yourself out, you know, because you can get explanations for everything. But for us to have to be working together, it's a cardinal sin, basically. You know, the fact that we allow these things to get in our way.
Well, I know, and it's like the marijuana leaf. There's some stores that wouldn't put our posters up because we had a marijuana leaf on them. In 2003, we figured out that we needed to do a poster with pot leaves and without pot leaves. And that way, if we come across a store or somewhere that they would display it but didn't want the pot leaf, then we had one without the pot leaf we could put it in their store.
See, once again, here we are being demonized, and we're being looked at as a less than, instead of being looked at as the source of taking care of people in this community. If the people who smoke, grow, sell, work with marijuana were not here, this community would not be existing. It would not make it. I'm sorry, there's just too many people who are involved in this process here, and y'all want to bury your heads and not look and see who's really there, because it might be your neighbor. And then what? Oh, you've liked this person forever. All of a sudden you found, wow, I didn't know that he had cancer in his family, and so therefore he's growing a herb for his two aunts, who one has pancreatic cancer and the other one is on dialysis. And then, you know, the hardest thing about that is the people on dialysis, if they're going to live, they have to tell their doctors that they're using marijuana to help them live. And then that puts them in a bad way with the people that are giving them the dialysis. I mean, we've got to get this yoke off our back so that we can actually start making the difference that we can.
There's been people that have been turned down for a kidney transplant because they had pot in their system.
Yet at the same time, we see this young man, Will, from Michigan, who gets killed by a cop protecting his son with a knife, telling them that the reason that the Human Services was there in the first place was because supposedly this father was smoking herb in front of his child. Well, if he were doing that, he had to have been doing it 30 days prior to when they took the toxicology test, because it came up negative, no marijuana in his system.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even when we're right, we're dead right, and it doesn't make a difference. People really don't want to hear it. You don't care that we're suffering in this process. You think it's a joke because I came out here 30 years ago to smoke herb. I didn't know why, but now I have a church surrounding it. It's part of my spiritual medicine. It's part of my physical medicine, and it's what helps me to survive on a daily basis. I don't care what you think about it. You know, I don't sit there and judge you about taking your Vicodin or your Percocet or your Oxycontins and sitting there drinking on lunch and other times so that you can relax because you're so stressed out. That's your choice. But understand, I'm not given my choice, and that's where the problem lies. And nobody cares to hear it. The mayor doesn't care to hear it. City council doesn't care to hear it. You know, the Lane Board of Governors doesn't care to hear it. The people at the Chamber of Commerce, they don't want to hear it. You know, because they have to make adjustments then. They have to do something a little different when they find out that we're the people that have been taking care and changing the, changing the diapers of their parents sometimes, you know, because we care enough that we'll do things like that. And then you find out, ooh, well, we smoke herb to relax, and that makes us the bad person again. It's totally ridiculous. Get real, get right, understand. We have the right to choose what we use in order to relax without punishment by those who do not understand, nor do they care to understand the difference. So hopefully you'll wake up sooner rather than later, because you're only hurting yourselves. This whole process could be helping your state survive. Your mayors don't even look at the DVDs that we bring into them to show them how other city councils are giving tax money up so that schools can be taken care of, while we can't even hold our state government accountable for doing what they were supposed to with the lottery in the first place, which was take care of the schools, not rebuild factories, not take care of the parks. When the lottery came into existence, it was because you hit us with, it'll help us take care of our children. Where is it? Now we've got another thing here that can help the children, marijuana. You don't care to hear that either, because you have to demonize it in order to treat us the way you do. So hopefully it'll stop sooner rather than later. And in the meantime, we'll keep doing things like
We
May 5th.
we keep hoping, and you bet. We have things going on all year. You be active, get active, and then show your support. We got the Hempfest coming up, the third weekend of July. It's the weekend after the Country Fair, the 20th, 21st, 22nd at Maury Jacobs Park, right on the river, right across the Valley River. Beautiful park down there, and people are really enjoying our new location. I say new, we're in the third year now. This will be our grandfather year. Once after this year, when you had a park in the same park for 3 years, consecutive years, the same weekend, then after that, you're grandfathered in. We automatically get it every year if we want it. We don't have to compete with anybody. So.
I see it growing, and I see that being the hub for a really nice Hempfest that'll rival Seattle's at some point.
It definitely will. So, well, appreciate it, Will, for coming by and helping me out
awesome,
again.
man.
And
Good job.
Appreciate it. All righty.
Thanks.
We'll talk to you later. We're out of here.